What you're seeing right now is not the Xiaomi M365 electric scooter. It's actually Ash trundling along on the previous scooter that I reviewed, the SmartMay T5. This is the M365. This is the Xiaomi M365 and it's one of the best electric scooters I've ridden so far. Stop right there. Some of what you're about to see is actually part of a review of this that I shot 6 months ago. Now, I never published that review, and for good reason as well. During the editing process, I was reading about a lot of people's opinions on this scooter, and a lot of people had specific problems with the long-term usage of this device. Now, my original review was shot after just 1 week of usage, so to me, it was all glorious and rainbows and lots of glitter. But I didn't want to be dishonest. I felt, well, if I publish this and people buy it and then after a month it falls apart, they're going to come back and blame me. So I decided to scrap that review off. But I've been using this now for 6 months. So with that in mind, I wanted to share my honest review 6 months down the line. Originally, when I first got my hands on it, I was immensely excited to try it out. This was something I'd been waiting for quite some time. I loved the last electric scooter I reviewed, and I love products by Xiaomi, so for me, this device was like having chips and rice. It's full of decent design specs for a mid-range scooter, a top speed of 25 kilometers and a maximum distance of 30, but these figures can flux vastly depending on how close you are to the maximum load of 100 kilograms. It's got a mechanical disc brake for added braking power, which is also assisted by regenerative braking. It has a rubber-lined footboard for better grip and durability, and although it's not advised to use it in the rain, it can really help keep you on the scooter during the cold or wetter months. The M365 has some great little design details, like a bell for example, which is also a catch. When released, allows the scooter to unfold with only a single hinge point. Another cool detail is the rear light, which flashes when the brakes are squeezed. And do you know what? The kickstand is a nice little touch too. It really is full of good features and design, however, it only looks like this on the surface and on paper. Well, I'm about to take you on a journey to discover some horrible and possibly even dangerous flaws that this scooter has. Straight out of the box, my overall impressions of this device was that it was a very beautiful looking piece of kit. This is only the second electric scooter that I've tried, having tried the SmartMay T5, which was a much more basic electric scooter. This felt like a actual thing that you can use on a daily basis, very much like a bike or something like that. Now the setup was actually quite straightforward. You've got 4 Allen key bolts just here, and it comes like this, except the handlebars are loose, and all you do is pop the handlebars in and screw these 4 Allen key bolts together and you're done. But with that said, I wanted to test a few things out of the box. Now this is actually going back to the review I did 6 months ago. I specifically wanted to talk about the brakes straight out of the box, so I decided to try them out. Right then, so I should get some speed up down this slope here. Full throttle and downhill, and brake. Oh dear. That wasn't the best. I mean, I'm going a bit downhill. I mean, roughly, how many feet is that going to be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 18, 19, 20, 32, 33, 34. Now, although that's an approximate, 34 foot to stop immediately after getting top speed going downhill. Not the best brakes in the world out of the box, and probably will need some fine tuning. Now you can see the brakes straight out of the box are actually quite dangerous. I guess not too bad if you're just doing gentle rolling down the street, but if you're actually going down a hill using the accelerator, which I don't think you're supposed to do, doesn't matter. If you're going some speed, the brakes aren't the best, and if someone jumps in front of you, you are going to kill them. So a bit of adjustment was needed on the brakes to make them slightly more responsive and a bit quicker. Now this does have, as I said earlier, a way of kind of artificially braking and using that power from the brake to regenerate the battery. Interestingly, on the earlier versions of this particular scooter, there was a problem with that, and that the sense of when the regenerative braking was working, it would overload the battery and blow a fuse and wipe your scooter out, and there'd be no way of recovering it. You'd have to open this, and it would cost nearly as much for a new kind of battery compartment thing underneath. It was a right faff, and a lot of people complained about it. Anyway, if you buy one of these now, you don't have that problem. Thankfully, they fixed it, they changed the software, they added some more fuses as far as I'm aware, and that weird thing where it would just overload the battery and destroy it has now gone. So bear that in mind if you are reading up on the M365. That, fortunately, doesn't happen anymore. On my initial ride of the M365, I had a very good impression overall of the quality, just because it's got air tyres. Now, I'd never ridden an electric scooter with air tyres before. The only ones I'd ridden were solid tyres. So going to an air tyre made a huge difference, and it's such a smooth ride, and I cannot stress how nice a ride it was. So my initial opinion of the scooter is that it's much quicker than any other scooter I've tried in the past. I'm actually going along the road here at some considerable speed, and it's a little bit scary. But with that said, the tyres are made of air, which means that although I'm going quite quick, it's quite soft because it's absorbing a lot of the vibrations from the road. However, the air tyres are both a really big positive but also a really big negative. And not because of what they are, but because of how difficult they are to change. And I only know this because, unfortunately, my rear tyre is no longer air. It's now solid. And there's a very good reason for that. About 4 months into using this, I'd say about 4 journeys a week, the rear tyre broke, or burst. It burst. I got a puncture, whatever. I'd heard about how difficult it was to change the tyres. I had no idea what I was in for. It was the single most difficult thing I've ever had to do, ever. Now, I can't show you the footage from when this happened, and that's because it's too violent to show you on YouTube. So instead I've put a little recreation together to show you my frustration in a family-friendly way. Useless piece of what are you looking at? But in all seriousness, it was ridiculous. First of all, it took me a little while to get the tyre off. I got the tyre off. I put the new inner tube in, and I struggled and struggled and struggled to get the tyre back on. I actually had to use 4 pairs of hands to get the tyre back on. I did it, got it on, pumped up the tyre, realised I'd burst the inner tube whilst putting the new one on. So I had to do it again. And by this point, I was so frustrated at how long and how difficult it had been, I decided to change it out to a solid tyre so that I don't have to do that ever again. And that was particularly difficult. I had to boil the tyre for 10 minutes to get it to soften up, because the tyre itself is so small that it sits in this really deep, disgustingly designed rim. Honest to God, this is the ministry of bad design. But once I'd done it with a significant amount of gun grease from my shotgun and WD-40, both of which I probably wouldn't advise using because it could mean that it spins on the hub, but it didn't, thank God, I got it on. But only after seriously tearing the amount of skin. Imagine this. Imagine holding a 100-degree boiling piece of rubber whilst trying to force it on a rim that is about 3 times the size of it. That is the pain and anguish that I had to go through. Honest to God, it was not pleasant. And I cannot stress how horrific it was. But I've done it now, and I've done it for the back tyre. I fortunately haven't yet punctured my front tyre. And I'm really praying to the gods that I never do, because the moment that goes, I'm going to break down in tears. I really, really am. But the question is, has it actually affected my ride performance? Overall, do you know what? Not much. I can definitely feel that it's a solid tyre. And I have read online that replacing it for solid tyres is a really bad idea because it can shake apart all your components, it can shake away the connections to things like the battery and cause problems in the long run. I haven't seen many people with problems caused by using solid tyres, and in fact I've got a good friend called Joe who's been running solid tyres on both for the past 6 months, and he hasn't had a single issue with any of the battery connectors or anything like that. So actually that could be a bit of an urban wives' tale. I don't know. Urban myth. Who knows? I'm sure someone out there has had a problem, and right now you are being triggered by the fact I'm saying that not many people have that problem. I'm sure there is, and I'm very sorry for that fact. But solid tyres are working out for me and for Joe. Now there are also a bunch of other kind of problems that people seem to have. There's this up here, and in fact, talking about Joe, he's snapped up here, and that seems to be quite a common fault. Now you can get replacements for these little bolts up here. I'll roll that way. You can get replacements for these bolts to fix it. You can also get stronger bolts as well, which are less likely to go wrong. So if you are using this a lot, I would suggest potentially looking at upgrading this mechanism up at the top. God knows what it's called. It's like a lever mechanism. I personally haven't had any problems. A lot of people have problems with the wobble as well. There isn't much wobble for me. However, you can get one of these. I'll just go get it. One of these, which is a little rubber kind of separator that kind of sits just here like that. Sits quite nicely on there. What that does is it just tightens all this up, stops the handlebars from wobbling if you've got a bit of wobble. So if you are watching this and you do have one of these and this is wobbling a bit, you can get a bunch of these online, different sort of sizes depending on how much this is wobbling. But to be honest, I haven't personally had an issue. I know people that have. There are people in the forums that have. It's a known issue, and it's something that you're probably going to want to deal with if you get one of these. Now let's talk about the legalities of using one of these in the UK, which is where I am. Around the world, you've got different laws. Most places now, US, Europe, you can use electric scooters, no problem. And in fact, I was over in Vilnius in Lithuania recently, and you can use electric scooters over there. God, this is dodgy as hell. Oh, this isn't well maintained at all. Oh dear. This really isn't well maintained. It's wobbly as hell. But here in the UK, we're stuck following laws from the 1800s. This is the law that apparently is stopping people from using electric scooters. If any person shall wilfully ride upon any footpath or causeway by the side of the road, made or set apart for the use of accommodation of foot passengers, or shall wilfully lead or drive any horse, ass, sheep, mule, swine or cattle, or carriage of any description, or any truck or sledge upon any such footpath or causeway, or shall tether any horse, ass, mule, swine or cattle on any highway, so as to suffer or permit the tethered animal to be thereon. It's a bit of a circus, if you ask me. I mean, these sort of things are so good for the environment. Yes, you need to charge them up, and electricity is made by gigantic, horrible, cancer-causing power plants. But, with that said, is electricity, and electricity can be generated through all sorts of means. Wind power, the waves, the sun. There's lots of different ways that electricity can be generated, and actually that's not my problem. I can't fix the fact that electricity is generated in power plants, but I can have my own solar panels. So this could be and is a very green way of moving around, and the fact our government doesn't support it is stupid. But they might support it if you're watching this now. At the moment, in June 2019, they don't. Okay, so we've been through some of the issues of this device, but I don't think that's 100% the point. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this. And the real question is, how much does it cost? So let's have a quick look online and see how much we can find them for. Apparently it's looking like, on average, about £400 across most websites, but as usual I'll leave a link in the description below. Now the real question is it worth that £400? Now I know a lot of what I've said has been quite negative about this scooter. I don't want you to think that I've got a negative opinion overall, because actually I've thoroughly enjoyed using this device. There were a couple of issues in the ordering stage as well that I would caution to mind. I mean, I ordered this one directly from China and it took like 3 months to get here, which isn't ideal because I'm extremely impatient. But imagine it had arrived 3 months it's taken. It's travelled all the way across Europe on a train and it's arrived broken. What do? I've got to send it back for another 3 months. I've got to then get another one sent 3 months later. It's going to take another 9 months before I get hold of a scooter. No, I don't think so. I think what I'd rather do in future is order directly from somewhere a little bit close to home. And like I said, I'll leave a link in the description for you. But despite my negativity in the review so far around some of the problems that I've had and some of the problems that other people might have had, it really is a good machine for the price. When there's one other thing as well about ordering from China, I'm going to need to refer to my original review for that. The big problem with the Xiaomi M365, or this version that I bought, is that it's all in Chinese, which is not the best thing in the world. I mean, I haven't got a clue what this is. For all I'm aware, this could be telling me don't use in the rain, but we'll never know. And there's not just this as well, there's warnings all over the thing. Like this down here, which has an exclamation mark on, so could be a very bad warning, that one. And this one up here, which also has loads of exclamation marks on and lots of things that probably warn me to do things. But I don't think any of that matters, because really it's just about having a bit of fun, really. Over the past 6 months, I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with the Xiaomi M365. I completely realise that it's not the most perfect machine I've ever used, and in fact it's riddled with annoying little problems, terrible design choices, and parts that seem destined to break. But none of that matters to me, because this scooter is tremendous amounts of fun in an extremely attractively priced package. And if you can mentally prepare yourself for the fact that you'll need to do some frustratingly difficult modifications to make it last, then I think this scooter will bring you immense amounts of joy like it has done for me. It offers a sense of freedom that you just don't get from any other modes of transport, and it's an absolute travesty that here in the United Kingdom these things aren't, strictly speaking, road legal. What's even more disappointing is that the government is taking their sweet time and blatantly dragging their feet when it comes to updating the antiquated laws surrounding modes of personal electric transport. If you live here, I'd encourage you to make as much noise as you can about the positive use of PLEVs, and although it's doubtful, maybe one day the government will actually listen to the people. If you live in a place that's embracing this environmentally friendly way of getting from A to B, then I envy you, because this is just so much fun. And although you might end up breaking a few parts on the Xiaomi M365, it's a way of buying into this freedom and fun without having to break the bank. So there we go, guys, that concludes my review of the Xiaomi M365. Everything I've said so far has been correct in June 2019. It's currently not legal to ride these on the road, and the price is about £400. But if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you back for another episode of Stu's Reviews soon. Before you go, consider supporting me on my Patreon page by clicking here. It'll give you some great discounts on stuff I've reviewed and helps me to continue doing reviews. If you want to see some fun stuff, click here to see the highlights of Stu's Reviews. And, as a friendly reminder, click this button to subscribe.